Hey everyone, this is Sheena with Crooked Calligraphy, and in today's quick video, I'm going to show you 3 easy techniques to add a really cool ink splatter technique to your calligraphy pieces. You know, just to add a little pizzazz, so stay tuned if you want to learn how to do that. Okay, so I have all the materials here I need. Some bright pink ink. This is ink mixed out of gouache, a tube of gouache paint. And if you want to learn how to make calligraphy ink for a pointed pen out of gouache, just check out this video right here I've made for you already. So we have the ink, and we have a paintbrush, and a number 4 paintbrush, and a flexible pointed nib. So 2 of the techniques are going to use this paintbrush, and 1 is going to use the pointed nib. So let's tackle the first technique. Okay, so the first technique is you want sort of a larger brush just so that you can get some ink like really on there and kind of saturate it. And the first technique is to just take this and hit it against another sort of hard object. I'm just using another paintbrush here. And if you can see, if you kind of hit it hard enough, and if you dip it into the ink, you get this kind of an effect. Okay, let's try the second effect. So the second effect starts really similarly, and except you're not going to hit, you're going to actually brush the bristles against the other hard objects here. And this one is going to get, can get a little bit messy. You kind of like hit it, and you can see that it's kind of sprayed all over the place, but you get a much finer kind of ink splatter technique, right? And the final technique is actually using a flexible pointed nib. So this is the kind of nib that I typically use for calligraphy, and this nib has worn out. So I used it a lot, and the tines kind of bent out of place. If you want to learn more information about how to tell when your pointed nibs are worn out, and you should sort of not use them anymore for calligraphy, then check out this video right here. I tell you what signs to look for. But anyway, you should use a worn out nib for this because you don't want to ruin a perfectly good nib, and you're going to be sort of messing with the tines here. So you need an old worn out nib, and then just like a sort of hard plasticky edge. So this is just a piece of craft paper that I've put packing tape on, but you can use an old credit card, an old membership card, anything like that. Something that you can flick the edge, the tip of your nib against, and it won't sort of fray the edge or get sort of ink and stuff soaked in there. So something non-porous, kind of hard edge. And what you want to do is just dip your nib in and then flick against the edge. And you can see that the more ink I have on my nib, the larger ink splatters I get. Less ink, I get really fine splatters. So if you freshly dip in and you really want a dramatic ink splatter, you dip in more. And you can see that you get sort of a slightly different effect here. So I've got all 3 effects for you to compare here, and you can see that they all look a little bit different, right? If you want a really sort of large splatter effect, larger round droplets, then use that first technique of just hitting the brush against the other brush. This is that second technique of hitting the bristles of the brush against your hard object, and this gives a much finer but sort of directional, like it kind of goes in lines like this, right? And then this is actually my favorite, and this is using the pointed nib. It kind of gives you a bit of a cluster and then kind of a spray, which I think just has a really cool look when you add it to calligraphy. So next I'm going to show you how I add this effect to a finished calligraphy piece. Okay, so I've created this calligraphy piece and it looks pretty kick-ass, but I feel like it could use a little something extra. There's a lot of negative space here and here, and just because, you know, the kick-ass message, I feel like adding some ink splatter would be perfect for this piece. So I want my droplets to go this way. So I am going to, oops. Okay, so that's something to watch out for. Totally didn't intend for that to happen, but when you do have a lot of ink on your nib, it can just drop off like that. We're gonna go with it anyway. So if I go this way, you can see how the splatters kind of go in the direction of the composition. Now, one thing you also want to watch out for is notice that the splatters here are pretty dense. So if I had done it like right here, it can actually just really obscure your lettering and make it really hard to read. So don't splatter too close to, you know, your actual letters. Aim for a blank space instead. And if you don't want quite that much splatter, then you can do it a little bit more gently or just not have as much ink on your nib. So that was a demo. I know this doesn't look great, but this does show you what to watch out for. Watch out for the direction you want your splatter to go in. Make sure you don't go too close to your letters, you know, so it makes it illegible. Aim for the white spaces instead. And, you know, regulate how much ink you get by just putting less ink onto your nib. So here's an example of a piece where I did sort of a fine ink splatter. I made sure there wasn't too large droplets going in among the lettering, and I think it just adds a really nice effect here. And that's why I prefer this technique of ink splatter. So I hope you enjoyed that quick video, and let me know in the comments if you end up using one of these ink splatter techniques and which one you prefer. Bye for now.